It's winter, 2017. I'm in Ireland and I'm looking at myself in the mirror. I've just watched Batman vs Superman, and I'm specifically looking at my physique and comparing it to a mental image I have of Batman. In the movie, Batman's jacked. There's a workout scene where he's like pushing heaps of weight, doing massive pull-ups. And I'm looking at myself and thinking, I want to look like that. I had this internal desire to be a physical representation of discipline, of virtue, of a hard-working man. And an external desire to be this cool-looking, jacked motherfucker that attracts girls. Like Batman. So, on my iPad, I searched up top 10 ways to get abs, or 5-minute ab workout. Then, how to do push-ups properly, how to build the shoulders at home. Skip forward to 2019, and I've been training for around about 2 years. I'd put on muscle, partially to do with newbie gains, but also because, I'd gone through puberty, and I'd been working out. I'd gotten larger, and people at school had started to respect me a bit more, but I wasn't happy still. I was still looking at my physique, and I was like, something's still not right, but I'm working so hard. I was thinking about it emotionally. I was like, I've been doing all this consistency, and I'm working the muscle, I'm fatiguing it every time. Why isn't it growing? I must be doing something wrong. I was doing quite a lot of things wrong. So, if you're in that place right now, or you haven't even started working out yet, or you've been working out for years, and you just want more, you want to know more, this will be my complete guide of all my knowledge on how to build muscle optimally. How to increase your size and strength by about 2 times. So before we can understand how to grow the muscle optimally, we first have to understand how the muscle grows. So when you're in the gym and you're working out, motor neurons are transmitted from the cerebral cortex down your spinal column, so down your spinal cord, and into the nerve pathways that connect to your muscle, which stimulate contractions. Now these contractions create tension in the muscle fibers, which then create mechanical stress, which stimulates anabolic processes and something called myosin thickening. Now, anabolic processes just means muscle building processes. And myosin's a very little specific protein that gets synthesized in the muscle. It's what makes up our muscles. It's the reason why we contract and we can contract and relax our muscles, and the reason why they get bigger and stronger. If the myosin gets bigger, the muscle gets bigger. They're like tiny motors that work together to move our muscles. And like any motor, they can be upgraded. The only question is how. So it's summer 2020. It's the start of 2020, around about March. I've just come back from a convention. My parents are away for the weekend, and I'm with my best friend Matthias, who we train together, sometimes. We get home, we do some exercise, and we take some progress pictures of ourselves because we want to see what we look like in comparison to our previous selves. We take the picture, and we compare it, and we're like, wow, okay, there's a bit of a difference here, that's pretty cool. But we still haven't reached that peak, that moment where you have the realization that you've achieved your goal. We're still standing there. We're like, we've grown, but we haven't grown that much. Well, I guess we haven't been that consistent. And I guess we're just doing what we want. We're not really following any strict plan. I guess I'm not eating as much as I could be. I guess I don't really understand how my muscles work for my specific goals. And we start thinking about it logically rather than emotionally. So, the literal next weekend, we get put into a COVID lockdown. And me and Matthias say to ourselves, well, this is the perfect time, right? We're just at home. We can improve our sleep. We can improve our eating. And we can improve our efficiency in the gym. So we get all our schoolwork done and then we go train together. So I'd run to his place for it'd take me about 45 minutes. So I like 5Ks or so. And then we'd do an hour or two workout and then I'd go back to mine. This happened literally every single day. It was the only way that I could get out and do something is you're doing exercise, right? So that's what we did. And this is how we learned together. We did research and then we trained. We research, we train. This is how we learned how to optimize muscle efficiency. And it worked. It worked very well. So, now that you understand how your muscle works, you can understand now how to optimize it. Understand how to optimize it. Or, more specifically, what optimizes it. So, the first key thing is understanding how motor units work and why they're important. So, the more efficient you are at recruiting motor units, which is just the motor neuron and the muscle fiber it controls, the more you will stimulate muscle growth and strengthen the muscle. So the more motor units you can recruit, the better strength gains you'll have, pretty much. The better size gains you'll have. And this comes in later. The next thing I want you to focus on, and I want you to understand, is that everyone has imbalances. And this is not something that actually everyone knows. So if you're sitting here and you think about a muscle that you want to contract, let's say the bicep. This is a pretty easy one for everybody. So if I'm sitting here with my bicep, I can think about contracting it without having to put my arm up, and I just go like this, and it contracts the bicep, right? That's pretty easy for most people. However, there are more complicated contractions in your body. For instance, an imbalance I have in my body is I can't contract my calves properly. So I want you to do this little actionable step for me right now. With me, see if you can contract, by just thinking about it, your calf muscle hard to the point of almost clamping. So, I can't really do it, right? If you feel it, it's not as tight as it could be. This just means that it's going to be not as easy for me, and if it's hard for you, it's not going to be as easy for you to grow the muscle. If it's easy for you, then it'll probably be easy, and you might actually already have really solid calf muscle. Now, there is still a point in training these muscles though, even if you can't contract them easily. Don't give up, it just means that it will be harder for you. It's not impossible. That's okay. Things in life are supposed to be hard, right? That's why we have discipline. So, the third point I want to bring up, and all of these will relate to stuff that I talk about later that's practical, it's usable, it's actionable. The third thing I want to bring up is something called the Heinemann size principle. This is a conservation of energy principle. This just states that we use the minimum amount of energy required to pick up anything. So the minimum amount of motor units, right? And if we remember, motor units are the motor neuron and the muscle fiber it controls. So if we could pick up something light, we're using the smallest amount of energy required. And likewise, if we're picking up something heavy, we're still using the smallest amount of energy or motor units required. Now, the interesting thing, in the Heinemann size principle, it highlights the importance of gradual resistance training in promoting muscle growth and avoiding fatigue in every set. This will come into play later. Now, the last thing, the fourth thing, is about testosterone. So if we can boost testosterone, there are two crucial parts it can play in muscle building. So number one, the process of increasing testosterone, so when it rises, it promotes anabolic processes in the muscle cells that facilitate the incorporation of new protein units into the muscle fibers, which is specifically the thickening of myosin filaments. So when you exercise, then you go home and recover. If you have more testosterone, the testosterone will help build back the muscle bigger and stronger. It will help incorporate new protein units into the mix and will synthesize bigger and thicker myosin filaments. And remember, myosin is the reason why our muscles get thicker and stronger. So that's fantastic. And then number 2, the mind-muscle connection while you're training, so while you're lifting the weights, is increased. And you have activated the muscle more, so you're recruiting more motor units. And remember what I said before, if you can find a way to recruit more motor units, you'll grow the muscle more efficiently, and it will be stronger and larger. So with this, if you increase testosterone, you're recruiting more motor units. So that's something to remember for later, and I'll give you tips and actionable steps on how to do that. Okay, so we have a plan. 2020 to 2021. We're in COVID. We're researching and then using. Research and using. Doing schoolwork and researching and then practically applying that knowledge. Seeing what works and what doesn't. Experimenting pretty much. I'm going to Matthias's house every day. I'm running there, as I said, and we're training. We're just training. And we're bulking. We're making actual progress for the first time. Now, in this period of time, between 2020 and 2021, I think I put on about 15 kilos of muscle. I went from about 70-ish kilos, 72 maybe, 73, to about 87, 88. This is where we began self-actualization, so actually applying what we learned and understanding training. Now, I'm going to give you the practical knowledge that I've learned since then. So the first thing I want you to practically apply to the gym is in your mind. I want you to regularly set strength or hypertrophy goals, monthly or bi-monthly. And specifically with these goals, I want them to be slightly beyond what you think is reasonably possible. So if you think in the next 1 to 2 months you can put on like a kilo or 2, make it 4. Make it 4 kilos of muscle. If you think that you can add 5 kilos, 10 kilos of weight to your squat or something like that, make it 15. Make the goal slightly beyond what you think is actually possible for yourself. Because if you actualize what's in your mind, right? If you make it so you think you can, your mind controls your muscle, right? In my opinion, this helps. This really does help. If you have a strong mindset, you can do what you want to do. Now, you might not achieve the goal, but it will definitely make you come closer to it. So, an actionable step I want you to do right now is get out a piece of paper, and specifically a piece of paper. If you really have to, you don't have any nearby, get your phone out, and write down 3 goals that you have that you want to achieve in the next 1 to 2 months, and make them slightly beyond what you think is possible. So, now that you have a goal, I want to give you what you should be lifting, what you should actually be using, the weight you should be using. So, if you're lifting for strength gains specifically, lift 75% to 80% of your 1 rep max, and this will bias the improvements towards strength gains. If you want to achieve hypertrophy, so growing your muscles in size specifically, you only have to lift with 30% of your 1 rep max. So if you're training for strength with this 75 to 80% of 1 rep max, you can do anywhere from 2 to 8 reps and it will be achieving strength. And if you do hypertrophy with this 30% of your 1 rep max, you can do anywhere from 10 to 15. Usually 12 is roughly about where it sits for perfect hypertrophy. So an actionable step with this one is I want you to A, play around with the percentages in different workouts depending on your goals, and B, so 2, write down next to your goals what percentage you are going to train in. So if one of your goals is increasing your bench by 10 kilos from 90 to 100, you want to be training that 75 to 80% of your 1 rep max, just so you could optimally and quickly enough stimulate the motor units in your muscles to grow. Yeah, so that's the second one. The third one, this is specifically for, it's more so for hypertrophy, but also for strength. Actually, no, I would say it's for both. So optimally growing your muscles often requires recruiting a wide spectrum of motor units, right? You have to recruit different types of muscle fiber. So this includes both slow twitch type 1 and fast twitch type 2 muscle fibers. So slow twitch fibers are just the ones that you use during running or endurance. That's the predominant ones. That's the one that take over in dominance. Then the fast twitch ones are the ones that you use during explosive and powerful movements. So if you think about like bench press or squats, if you're doing that explosively or controlled, you're most predominantly using the fast twitch muscle fiber, and that's the one that we want to grow for strength and for hypertrophy. So fatiguing the muscles too quickly, so if you're going to fatigue every single set, you will primarily engage the less powerful type 1 fibers after the fatigue. So if you do your first set of bench press and you go all the way to fatigue and you can't do it anymore and your partner has to pick it up, you have reached complete fatigue and your muscle fibers in the type 2 spectrum, so the fast twitch, have given out, and you're now relying on more so the slow twitch type 1. And for the next set, it's the same thing. The type 1 will then take into effect. So this potentially limits the overall muscle growth that you can get in the gym. So an actionable step for this one is, in the gym, when you're training today or tomorrow, play with the weight you use and don't push to fatigue each set. Next, I want you to get that piece of paper from before and write this down. Just write down, do not fatigue until last set of exercise. It's really important information if you want to speed up the process of growing that muscle, right? All right. So this is the next thing, and this is actually a very good method. Like, it's widely known, but for some people, a lot of people I know don't track their weight, right? So this is called progressive overload, and you've probably used it before, you might have heard it before. This just means continuously increasing the resistance or load of the exercise over time. So this leads to greater motor unit recruitment and myosin engagement, so part of the Heinemann size principle, which then consists of strength gain and myosin thickening. So let's say you're doing barbell squat, and then now this is how you can apply it. So let's say we're doing barbell squats. In your first workout, you want to squat with the barbell, let's say 100 kilos. That's what you usually squat. Over the next few weeks, we aim to progressively overload this to reach a certain goal. So week 1, you're squatting 3 sets of 8 reps of 225 pounds or 100 kilos. Then week 2, after a couple of sessions in week 1, increase the weight to 235 pounds or 105 kilos and aim for the same thing of 3 sets and 8 reps. Then week 3, increase the weight again to 245 pounds, so 110 kilos, and do the same again, 3 sets of 8 reps. Now, I'm not saying that you will achieve each 3 weeks, you will be able to achieve the 5 kilo weight difference. It's a thing that's definitely possible, but if you don't, just keep playing with smaller increments of weight. So if you can't do 110 kilos after the 105, do 108 instead. So an actionable step for this one is thinking about your own training. Have you done this before? Have you not? Are you already implementing this? If you are, fantastic. If you're not, grab the piece of paper that you wrote down the 3 goals on before, and after this video, or if you want to pause this video right now, next to each of your goals, write down how and where you can implement this progressive overload, where you can increase the reps or weight by 5 kilos, 2.5 kilos, 1 kilo, anything you want. Just make sure it's per week, progressively overloading per week. And then just keep track of it on your phone or on a piece of paper in the gym, where you're at each week and what weight you need to increase it by next session. It's a really easy way of achieving goals, and in my opinion, it's fantastic. Because you're literally just training your muscles to recruit more and more motor units each week, right? It's great, progressively overloading. So, I've found the most optimal way to perform a rep is explosively moving the weight up in the concentric movement, so concentric, and then slowly on the eccentric movement, so down, so you're moving it down slowly. This is for hypertrophy and strength gains, favoring hypertrophy slightly. So, I want to ask you right now, so there's either the concentric or the eccentric movement. Which one do you think puts more mechanical stress on the muscle? So which one do you think is harder for the muscle to do? I don't know what you said, but I thought it was concentric movements. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people did as well. It's actually eccentric movements, so it's actually a lot harder for your muscle to contract, lowering the weight down, because it creates more mechanical stress on the muscle fibers. It's interesting. It's a lot harder. And it's also where you're a lot stronger. You can put things down that are a lot heavier than what you can pick up. So, by doing this, you trigger a stronger adaptive response that thickens the myosin more so. So, if you move the weight even slower, so time under tension, so the more stress you cause it, right? The more the myosin will thicken later on in the recovery stage. So, to understand this principle physically, I want you to get down on the floor right now as an actionable step. And I want you to give me 3 different variations of push-ups. Number 1, I want you to do 3 push-ups that are explosive as possible. Number 2, I want you to do push-ups that are as slow as possible. So you're really controlling both the eccentric and the concentric movements. And number 3, I want you to do the eccentric movement, so pulling down as slowly as possible, and explode up. And tell me what feels most optimal to you. I found that explosive on the way up and slow on the way down is best for the muscle. You're growing it in both strength and hypertrophy. Now I have 3 quick tips that are actionable in the gym for you. So, A, on the last set of every exercise, you should perform past your lactate threshold. The next one is pro tip for increasing hypertrophy. So if you really want to increase that size of your muscle, between sets, flex for 30 seconds to improve stress, tension, and damage. So if you're going bicep curls again, I'm going to say bicep curl. If you're going for bicep curls, stress that muscle really hard for 30 seconds. And like, I can already feel the burn building up. It's quite hard. This is specifically just for hypertrophy, by the way. This isn't for strength, as you're not improving the way the muscle works. You're just fatiguing it more. The third thing, and this is probably something you've heard quite a lot, and if you haven't, here you are. Consistency is vital. Just show up every week. So, I was using all this practical knowledge that I built up about strength training and recruiting motor units and stuff like that. And in spring 2021, I reached a plateau in my bench press. I thought I knew the majority of what there was to know, but I was wrong, as usual. I didn't understand how to get past the plateau. I had reached 100 kilo bench press, I got 1 rep, and I was trying everything I knew how to increase that to 2 to 3 reps, but I couldn't. So this is where I had to do some further research on PubMed and stuff like that about how to reach past the plateau and how to increase hormones in your body, like testosterone. So the way you get past a plateau, so this is the recovery stage. So if you're in a plateau, it means that your muscles are super compensating for something. It means they've been working so hard, they haven't actually been given time to start adapting to the training stimulus that you've been giving them for so long. So if you take 1 week off, it gives them enough time to replenish the energy stores and actually start adapting to the previous training stimulus, essentially preparing itself to handle a greater workload when it returns. This enhances the muscle myosin protein synthesis. So when you resume your training after your break, the muscles will be primed to lift heavier weight and do more, leading to an improved performance and potentially breaking through that plateau. This is what happened for me. The one thing to remember is don't take these breaks too regularly, otherwise It will lead to detraining, and you don't want that because it leads to muscle loss. So one of the key things to remember is if you need recovery, oftentimes it'll be shown by your grip strength. So if you ever walked in the gym and it's like you start picking stuff up and your grip strength is just really weak, you just can't do it. Like, you can't pick it up for as much as you usually could. This is probably because your muscles are still rewiring to generate force and may be fatigued. So they probably just need rest. It's one of the signs of supercompensation. So, in autumn 2022, we finally gained enough knowledge to naturally increase our testosterone properly. I was watching Andrew Huberman, and I was doing a lot of research of my own on a place called PubMed, which Huberman talks about a lot. It's really good. It's like a Google search for research that's done. It's fantastic. So, before we understand how to optimize testosterone, you actually have to understand testosterone and understand the two things that you want to avoid, the two other hormones you need to avoid. So, understanding testosterone plays a crucial role in promoting muscle protein synthesis and muscle growth, as we talked about before. It contributes to increased strength, physical performance. It also supports like bone density and bone structure. An increased level of testosterone also increases the amount that you can metabolize. So if you have an increased testosterone, chances are you'll have a lower body fat percentage. Additionally, testosterone influences mood, cognitive function, and potentially enhances focus, confidence, and overall well-being. All of those things are true. All of those things I've found so true. This is what we want to lower and avoid production of. This is cortisol. So if you've ever been feeling this stressed, panic feeling about like a task that you need to be doing, your heart's pumping a bit faster, your brain keeps rushing around, you then procrastinate. That's cortisol kicking into effect. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and it can inhibit the release of testosterone. Now, the second thing that we want to avoid is prolactin increase. Now, prolactin's actually not that bad of a thing for regular people. So, if you're having sex and your libido's really high and you're really horny, when you ejaculate, prolactin gets released and you get returned down to a regular state of being. You're not just walking around this horny motherfucker all the time. So, elevated prolactin levels actually disrupt the testicular testosterone synthesis and potentially impact various physiological functions influenced by testosterone, such as muscle gain, confidence, mood, libido. Testosterone boosting naturally. Reduce stress during life. Stress in life can activate the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. That's a long title, but it's pretty much just a place where cortisol is released, which, as we said before, negatively impacts testosterone synthesis. By reducing stress, the HPA axis actively diminishes, which in turn promotes testosterone production in the testes, contributing to an overall increase of testosterone levels. So an actionable step for this one, think about what causes you the most stress right now. Apply one of these three things to it. Discipline, actively avoidant, or improvement. So if it's study, if you're actively like stressed about study, either you can apply discipline to yourself and just do the work even though you don't want to, or you can actively avoid it, you can get rid of it, you can stop studying, or you can improve it. You can ask for an extension. So, cold showers before workouts. The relationship between cold exposure and testosterone is a little complex. While cold exposure can indeed trigger stress responses in the body, which then elevates cortisol levels, it may also stimulate other mechanisms, such as increased sympathetic nervous system activation and beta endorphin release. So, sympathetic nervous system, that's the fight or flight system, right? That's what kicks in when you're in danger. And beta endorphins are released when you're when you're in pain. So, This can counteract cortisol-induced suppression and potentially lead to short-term increases of testosterone. So, what do we learn from this? Well, if you have an increase in levels of testosterone from a cold shower, right? What do you want to do after that? You don't want to just waste that testosterone. You should go immediately train while the testosterone is still high for the next hour. If you do that, the testosterone, remember what we were talking about before, testosterone, mind-muscle connection while you're training, and recovery. If testosterone is boosted, you have better mind-muscle connection. You feel better while you train. The third thing is the order of your training. So, when endurance activity is performed first, it leads to a decrease of testosterone. The reason? Assuming you can guess it by now. Acute cortisol elevation. To optimize testosterone levels, weight train first and then do cardio. There's nothing wrong with cardio, you just need to do it afterwards so you don't deplete your energy systems. So the next thing you can do to improve testosterone is exercise for around 60 minutes. As anything past that, past 75 minutes, will drop testosterone and increase cortisol again. So cortisol, as we know, comes from stress or fatigue. So if you're fatigued, you're going to release cortisol and it's going to drop testosterone. So try to aim for a workout that's 60 minutes that doesn't fatigue you as much as you would think. The next thing is something that probably all of you have heard of. Maybe some of you are trying it, maybe some of you think it's a hoax. I'm going to try my best to explain it to you. I'm very sorry if this fucks up. Hopefully it won't. So, semen retention. Now, ejaculation does not actually cause an active decrease of testosterone. However, it will cause an increase in prolactin, and if you remember, prolactin decreases testosterone levels through the inhibitory effects of the hypothalamic pituitary gondole, so the HPG axis. However, sex increases testosterone by 70% during the act, and then when you ejaculate, the prolactin is released and you return back to normal. So what do you think happens when you masturbate? When you masturbate, your testosterone definitely doesn't rise 70%, may rise about 10%, but that's not much. And then when you ejaculate, the prolactin's released, and it's trained to drop your testosterone down by 70%. So, what's very interesting about this, though, is that because sex causes an increase in testosterone of up to 70%, if you remain abstinent from ejaculation during sex, there are 2 studies I found that indicate that if you do this for 1 week or more, so you abstain from ejaculation during sex for 1 week or more, it causes an increase in testosterone in males of up to 400%. So it's complicated, right? Having sex causes a rise in testosterone. Refraining from ejaculation during sex causes a rise even further. But ejaculating doesn't actually do anything. It's not the act of ejaculating, it's just the prolactin. So we just want to avoid the prolactin, that's all. So if you can do that, you'll have a rise of 400%, and then you will increase so much muscle mass. I experienced this. After having sex without ejaculation for like a week or 2, I was horny as fuck for like 10 minutes. But it goes away, and you feel like you have more of a drive to do work. You feel less stressed, more confident, more like you could achieve all your goals. And a rapid increase of strength and size. When I did this, I had a plateau of about like 2 to 3 reps on my bench press that I couldn't reach out, and I couldn't even use the recovery method of taking a week break because I'd just done it recently. And I did this with testosterone boosting. It went up within about a month to 11 reps on the bench. Every single time I went to the gym, I was increasing the reps by about 3 times. Sorry, by about 3 reps. It was insane. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a professor. This is just my own personal experience, and what I want you to try out. Now, the last thing I want to just talk about quickly is supplements. So, supplements you can take to increase testosterone and muscle mass is creatine monohydrate. So that's something you probably all heard of. I'm not going to talk too much in depth about it. Like, I'm literally just going to actually mention them. Creatine monohydrate. Then there's whey protein, which you've also heard of. Then zinc. Zinc is great for your testosterone increase. Then Tonga Ali, Fedoja agrestis, and ashwagandha. So all three of those last ones, Tonga Ali, Fedoja agrestis, and ashwagandha, are beneficial in reducing cortisol, which then allows the rise of testosterone. So all of them calm you down and then increase testosterone levels. There are limited animal studies suggesting that it has positive impacts on testosterone for Fedoja agrestis and Tonga Ali. There hasn't been enough studies done, but from what it looks like and how like it's pretty cheap, from what I've tried of it, it works, in my opinion. It makes me feel more stressed, more confident. Sorry, less stressed and more confident, and it helps me in the gym. So, I really hope this video has helped you in some way. I hope that you're going to take it into account, everything I've said, and use what I've given you. It really helped me. Now, it will take some time to achieve this, but you will see that this optimal muscle growth method really works. Use all of them in conjunction, and you will find that you will increase your muscle size so much more while increasing strength. Now remember, you also need to eat properly in bulk if you really want to put on muscle. Now, I'm not going to address that because that's diet. That's not muscle optimization. That's just diet. But you do need to eat quite a lot. Eat like 5 times a day. Alright, you got this, bro. I believe in you. Ciao, ciao.